Hi, I'm Whitney Espich, the CEO of the MIT Alumni Association, and I hope you enjoy this digital production created for alumni and friends like you.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Jill Bassett, Associate Dean and Director of the MIT PKG Public Service Center. I am so happy to see you all today, and I'm really delighted that you are here to learn more about the PKG Center and what we do. I just want to share a couple of housekeeping notes with you before we get going. First of all, we are recording this session and we will be sharing it with members of the MIT community who are unable to join today. Following our speaking portion, we will have plenty of time for questions and answers. So while we're actually talking, we do ask that you stay on mute until we are done speaking. However, you should feel free at any point to enter your questions in the chat or use the raise hand feature. And for those of you who are still finding your way around Zoom, you can find the raise hand feature at the reactions button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And we'll look forward to getting to your questions after we're done chatting. And I know for some of you who are here today, the PKG Center had either not yet been created or was in its early stages when you were students at MIT. Therefore, I am delighted to share with you how our center has evolved and talk a little bit about our current focus and programming. I'll then turn it over to our awesome guest speakers. We have an incredible community partner here in the Conservation Law Foundation, and three folks who participated either as MIT students, while they were MIT students, in internships with the Conservation Law Foundation, and it'll be wonderful to hear from them. So with that, I will walk you through a bit about the PKG Center, starting with its mission. So our center taps and expands MIT students' unique skills and interests to prepare them to explore and address complex social and environmental challenges. We educate students to collaborate ethically and effectively with community partners, such as the Conservation Law Foundation, to engage in meaningful public service today and in their lives beyond MIT. So a little bit of history about our center is that in the early days, and for most of the 30 years that the PKG Center has been around, we were housed on the student service side of the MIT organizational structure. So we were housed with housing and dormitories and food and student clubs, which was awesome. And along with that, a fair amount of the work that we did was supporting quote unquote days of service. So helping student groups do some volunteering by cleaning up the Charles River or serving food to folks who are homeless. And a few years ago, we moved to the academic side of MIT. We are housed in the office of the Vice Chancellor. And what this has done is it has enabled us to really rebrand and refocus the work that we're doing so that our programming is aligned with the courses that students are taking, rigorous with academic components, and mutually beneficial for our partners and agencies and other collaborators that we're working with. And Savannah has put in, my colleague Savannah has put in the chat a link to our PKG strategic plan from a few years ago that talks about these changes in greater depth if you're interested in that history. And then on the next slide, this is a very quick overview of a problem that is coming from some of the senior survey data that we're seeing at MIT. And we don't yet have the most recent numbers on this because the pandemic has disrupted the survey process. However, what we have learned is that after 4 years at MIT, students who arrived at MIT feeling inclined to be a leader in their community and participating in community affairs and working for social or political change viewed those things as less high on their list when they were exiting MIT, which can mean a whole bunch of things, but in some ways this really is foundational to the work that we're doing, because we want to make sure that when students are drinking from the proverbial MIT fire hose, as you all know well, that doing good in the world through mutually beneficial work with the community while at school and also after graduation is something that remains really important to students and alums. One way that we talk about this with students in our programming is we use the Minnesota Campus Compact Social Change Wheel, which, as you can see, has a whole bunch of pie slices that shows the different ways that individuals and groups can contribute to society during both school and after school and into retirement and beyond. So philanthropy, for example, is one way by giving a little bit of money or a lot of money to organizations that you care about. Doing advocacy, whether it's for a particular topic related to your work or something that you personally care about, is something that we teach students about. We talk about being responsible on a daily behavior, making choices that benefit society. And then for some of our students, through some of our programming, they explore taking an idea to make the world a better place and building a social entrepreneurship company, or doing some protests, volunteering, and so forth. So there are many different ways that we encourage students to think about how they are contributing to society, both while they're at school and when they graduate. And as such, we offer a wide range of programs. We have individual sort of low time intensive programs. Students can come to us and learn about a topic at a workshop, or they can participate in a pre-orientation program or a spring break program. And then as they become more interested, we have what I like to call plug and play opportunities, where we have sourced opportunities, for example, an internship at the Conservation Law Foundation, and you'll hear about those today, where students can apply and do mutually beneficial work with the Conservation Law Foundation. And then in sort of the upper part of this pyramid is where students working side by side with community organizations can co-create things that they want to create that will benefit the organization and that further use their skills that they are learning in the classroom. And then they come to the PKG Center with a proposal and ask for funding. And if it meets our requirements and our reviewers like it, then we'll go ahead and give some funding. So two of those programs that are in the upper part of our pyramid are our IDEAS Social Innovations Challenge, as well as our fellowships program. And we have information about all of these programs in greater detail on our website. And then we work in a few different themes. And Savannah, I think we have one slide before this, which reflects the areas that our students really are interested in doing work at, and also some of the topics that are in the news every day here. So our themes are loosely organized into health, particularly with a focus on health equity, climate change, and using technology for social good. And we have been working more and more elements of racial justice and social justice into these themes, again, reflecting what students are interested in and some of the most complex issues that are facing us. And then last but not least, we work with really awesome partners, and we're continually looking for new partners. So if any of you in the audience today work with organizations that you think could benefit from being connected with MIT talent, we'd love to speak with you more. So on the slide is a representative of some of the organizations that we've been working with. We work locally in Boston, we work nationally, we also work globally. And while much of our work is with nonprofit organizations and government organizations, we also don't care really if an organization is for profit, so long as they are doing work that falls into our themes and that is applied and allows our students in mutually beneficial ways to use their MIT skills to affect change. So we are trying to form more partnerships with corporations, and again, welcome any leads that you have on that. So that is our overview of the PKG Center. And I'll be happy to answer any questions when we get to the end of our presentation. But I am now thrilled to introduce our guest speakers. We are joined today by a representative of the Conservation Law Foundation, Alex Linkow. And in addition, we'll hear from 3 students who participated in social impact internships at the Conservation Law Foundation, which we also call CLF. We have Ben Bartschi with us, and Emily Yang, and Kayla Tabb. They will each introduce themselves and share a little bit about their experience working with the PKG Center and with CLF. And with that, I will turn it over to Alex.
Well, thanks so much, Jill, and really great to hear more about the breadth of PKG Center activities. Lots of exciting stuff going on. And so huge thanks to MIT and to the PKG Center for having me today. Thanks for all of the fabulous programs that you run and the awesome students that you work with. So I'm Alex Linkow. I'm Manager of Impact Investment for Conservation Law Foundation, CLF for short. And CLF is, for those of you who don't know, we're a Boston-based environmental advocacy organization. We've been around for 50 plus years, and we've had MIT students working with CLF for, as I'm told, at least the last 10 years. So it's been a great long-standing collaboration. And for our part, CLF is really dedicated to protecting the environment in New England for the benefit of all people in the region. And we use a combination of law, science, and markets to preserve natural resources, to build healthy communities, and also to support a vibrant economy in the region. And this work really includes everything from litigating against polluting corporations to pushing for strong climate policies across New England and protecting New England's ocean resources, to impact investing to build healthy communities in New England. And I work on our ventures team as part of our Healthy and Resilient Communities group. And we really focus on using a combination of impact investing, impact metrics, and community-based research to help build healthy, vibrant, and resilient communities across New England. So we have 2 impact investing funds, the Healthy Neighborhoods Equity Fund and the Healthy Retail and Commerce Fund. We partner with a Boston-based community development financial institution called MHIC, Massachusetts Housing Investment Corporation, to invest in a combination of healthy workforce, moderately affordable housing, as well as health promoting enterprises like grocery stores and food systems nonprofits in areas that have been historically disinvested and areas with limited access to healthy food. So as part of this work, we've developed an impact scorecard called Health Score to help us assess the impacts of our Healthy Neighborhoods Equity Fund, housing and commercial developments, and we partner with MIT's Department of Urban Studies and Planning, as well as the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation on the Healthy Neighborhood Study. And this is a participatory action research study across 9 greater Boston communities. And this research really engages community-based organizations and residents directly in researching how development in communities from Lynn to Roxbury to Brockton and beyond impact resident health and well-being. And so with support from the PKG Center, CLF has been really lucky to host MIT students, including Kayla Tabb in 2018 and 2019, I believe, and Ben Bartschi in 2019. I know both worked as interns on our Healthy Neighborhood study and specifically on state of place analyses to better understand the walkabilities of communities where we work on the study. And we also had the opportunity to work with a PhD student at MIT, Sebastian Sandoval Olasco-Alga. We worked with him, I believe, this past summer and he used health insurance data to conduct analyses for the Healthy Neighborhood study. So another exciting project. And I didn't have the opportunity to work with Kayla, Ben, or Sebastian directly, but I know from speaking with colleagues that they each made significant contributions to the work, and excited for them to share some details with you. I did have the opportunity to work with Emily Fang on our health score impact scorecard from January to May of last year. And through health score, we really assess factors such as public transit access, walkability, health, and economic data within the neighborhoods where we consider housing investments. We also consider factors like responsiveness to community needs, affordability, energy efficiency, all of the development itself. And these are really all social determinants of health that we endeavor to positively impact through our investments. As we were building out the newest iteration of this health score impact scorecard, we realized that it wasn't efficient to pull all of this data manually, and we needed to automate the process, but we didn't have the coding skills on our team that we needed to do it. And that's really where Emily came in. So we got Emily oriented to the work and the task at hand, and she was immediately off and running last January, helping us to automate a collection of over 24 health, economic, and transit access data points for each investment opportunity that we looked at through our Healthy Neighborhoods Equity Fund. And Emily and I met regularly on Zoom over the course of the project, and I was really consistently impressed by her coding skills, her communications and project management skills, and problem solving ability. And we've already used the automation that Emily built to help us assess 5 workforce housing and commercial developments in Boston, Hamilton, and Brockton, Massachusetts. So again, we're really grateful to the PKG Center and MIT for connecting us with these amazing students. And thanks so much to Emily, Kayla, Ben, and Sebastian, who's not here this afternoon, for all your contributions to CLF's work. Really incredible. And with that, I'll pass the mic to Ben Bartschi to tell you about his experience interning with CLF.
Thanks so much, Alex, for your introduction. So we were asked each to speak a little bit about our experiences. So for some background, my freshman year at MIT, I was planning on going into civil engineering, civil and environmental engineering. And so had gone through their program and applied for a study abroad that they do for 1 month in the middle of the summer, and was fortunate enough to be a part of that. But because of that, as I was looking for other summer opportunities, I needed to fill in the space basically of the months of June and August. And a lot of internships, were only committed to having me for maybe 3 months straight, or for, relocation opportunities. So I looked towards the PKG Center to see if they had any opportunities, because I grew up doing a lot of public service in scouting and in religious communities, and was interested in maybe learning more about that and applying my skills to that area. So they connected me with CLF, and CLF was super nice and accommodating, and allowed me to, work around my other summer educational opportunities, and got me on board pretty quickly. And the experience is really cool. There's a lot of other interns, besides a lot of legal interns and other kind of media and outreach interns that work for CLF over the summer. So it was a really awesome cohort that I was able to learn from and work with, and just be immersed in kind of this environment of advocacy and professional work towards helping the New England area and the communities surrounding it. And the opportunity was really cool because they were really flexible in letting me apply any of the skills that I was learning in school to try and assist in the study that was going on. As Alex mentioned, they were working on the Healthy Neighborhoods study, which involves working with these community partners and also yearly conducting surveys of the conditions of streets and of residential areas and commercial areas, and to get a better idea of how these neighborhoods are progressing over time. And so I was interested in doing some automation work and coding with Python, and took kind of a lot of the street routes that we would map out and walk and survey doing these state of place research activities, and then combined that with some GIS data and created some automatic maps and routes for everyone to go do in a more efficient way, as it takes a long time to divide up streets by the hundreds and figure out who's going to walk where. So that was really cool. On top of that, like I said, I was really interested in public service and learning more about advocacy, but I didn't necessarily grow up in an environment surrounded by a lot of that. So it was really cool to use CLF's resources to learn more about what was going on. And they would host weekly luncheons where different lawyers would talk about cases that they're that they're working on, and other activities that are going on, as Alex mentioned there. So I really felt much more well informed and much more inclined to participate in these activities. Other parts of the Healthy Neighborhood study involved going to these different communities throughout Eastern Massachusetts and attending different public forums and different community events to understand what local groups are advocating for and how we can assist them in their work and help give them whether educational resources or other ways that the study could properly be, a participatory study where the people are involved with us as we go. So one of my favorite opportunities in this was in Roxbury, going to a community event where it was a family-oriented event. So they had lots of like a fun house and a dunk tank and everything like that. But then there was also a bunch of tables lined up with kind of information about local community activities going on. And so it was just really cool to participate in that and see how these local groups come together and involve, the members of their neighborhoods to try and drive social change for good. As far as moving forward from this, as I mentioned, my freshman year, I was interested in studying civil engineering, and kind of along the way realized that I really like the technical aspects of computer science and coding and the projects that can bring about and all the data wrangling and the amazing things that can take. So I transitioned more into the core 6 computer science right after that. And I look forward to trying to use my skills to make help improve communities and improve the social good that we have around us. And it's just such a great opportunity that the PKG offers in helping connect us, because I would never have known where to look without it. So overall, it was just an amazing experience, and I still think about it all the time whenever listening to the news or reading articles and seeing, all the different political things happening in the world. But it's awesome to see the angle that CLF takes it all and how they try to improve everything around it. So that's a little bit about my experience, and I'll go ahead and pass it to Emily.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. It's really cool to hear about your time working at CLF. So actually, I'm also a civil and environmental engineering major, also double majoring with urban studies and planning, and I'm a current junior at MIT. As Alex said, I worked with CLF last January through May through the public service/social impact internship program. I guess like a little bit of background on where I was before working for CLF. I was a civil and environmental engineering major, and I was really interested in looking at climate resilient and disaster resilient infrastructure. So I guess like naturally things like affordable housing and transportation access were on my mind. I guess I was really involved with public service and outreach in the educational space. I worked for an education nonprofit before coming to MIT, and I work with a lot of education groups on campus. So I was kind of looking for an opportunity to like combine what I was studying academically with my interest in public service. So CLF was like really just like the perfect opportunity to do that. It was really just sitting at like the intersection between like climate change, transportation, housing, and public health. I think Alex has talked a lot about what specifically I did at CLF. So just to recap, I had the opportunity to work with HNEF, which is the Healthy Neighborhoods Equity Fund, looking at some investments they wanted to make in transit-oriented, mixed-use, and affordable housing. And my role was to automate a scorecard to pull data from a lot of public health databases to kind of like look at the disparities between these neighborhoods and the state of Massachusetts or Connecticut or Rhode Island, and kind of assess the impacts of investments in certain neighborhoods from there. This was a really cool opportunity because the semester before I worked for CLF, I took like a lot of statistics and environmental data analysis classes, but I wasn't really sure what to do with that or what to apply that to because a lot of the data sets we were working with were predetermined. So this was a really cool opportunity to work with like real world data on like real world investments. So that was really cool. Something else I really appreciated about my time at CLF was getting to see what everyone else on our team and just in the organization was doing. It was really cool to see how everyone came from like a lot of different career paths and had a lot of different skill sets, from like finance to like research to like community organizing. But they were all like coming together and applying these skill sets together to make real change in our local community. So that was really cool. And it was also just like looking past our team, really cool to see like the multi-pronged approach that CLF was taking to tackling environmental issues and social justice and public health issues. As Alex mentioned before, like looking at litigation or with like very intense research to the Healthy Neighborhood Study. So definitely gave me the opportunity to think more about like what I wanted with my career and like what kind of work I enjoyed and what I wanted to do in the future. Yeah, so I guess working at CLF really inspired me to think more about urban planning. And I recently declared my double major in urban planning, so that was really cool. And yeah, it just has put a lot of these issues more on the forefront of my mind, and excited to see what comes next and where I go after this. So yeah, so that's all I really have to say, but happy to take questions later. And with that, I'll pass the baton to Kayla.
Thanks, Emily. So hi, I'm Kayla. I was an anthropology major at MIT and finished up my studies back in 2020. I worked with CLF from 2018 to 2020 during both the summer and the school year, and got acquainted or introduced to the organization after I finished up an internship with Congress for the New Urbanism that was also through the PKG Center. And so I was really interested about kind of the intersection of urban studies and anthropology and doing field work that is kind of known as anthropology at home. And so I got involved with the Healthy Neighborhood Study and was really excited about the kind of research that they were doing because it was participatory action research. So it was very impact oriented and was done in collaboration with our research subjects across the various neighborhoods and communities that we were studying. And I got to kind of flex both my qualitative and quantitative data collection and analysis skills. Anthropology, for the most part, is pretty qualitative. And so I was able to go out and do a lot of surveying, interviews, and then did a lot of kind of coding of interviews, which in the anthropology world is a different kind of coding. And then also helped with kind of the quantitative data collection through the state of place that Alex mentioned earlier. Yeah, it was just really great because I think it was a really great opportunity for me to kind of see a lot of the stuff that I'd learned in my classes around global health and public health. Specifically, my focus in anthropology was medical anthropology and global health. So I'd taken several classes around like kind of the social determinants of health and things like that. And so, yeah, this internship was a really great opportunity for me. I think the PKG Center, especially for social science students in general, is like an amazing place to find internships and lots of opportunities to kind of apply what we're learning in class. And so after my time at CLF, I was actually able to do a bunch of different stuff with the PKG. I interned with Partners in Health at the COPE location in New Mexico, specifically working on studying food deserts and food insecurity and how people can have greater access to healthy foods on Navajo Nation. And then I also interned during IAP at the Boston Medical Center in the autism program, and was kind of doing programmatic research there and helped them set up their kind of qualitative analysis. And then I was also able to take a class called Evolution of an Epidemic, which wasn't through the PKG, but was a global health course actually in South Africa. And we studied kind of the social and cultural factors that contribute to the transmission of HIV/AIDS. So I've had lots of amazing experiences kind of in global health since this internship with CLF. And right now I'm taking a little bit of a break, but the plan is to go to grad school to get a master's in public health or a PhD in medical anthropology. So I'm really grateful for the PKG being around.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences. We're so glad to hear from all of you about what you learned, what you did, and kind of how it impacted you. So now we'll have plenty of time to do lots of questions, and then I'll share some slides at the end as well. So we'll start off with questions. And as Jill mentioned, in the reaction button at the bottom of your screen, there's a raised hand feature. Feel free to use that, or raise your physical hand if that's easier as well. And you can feel free to put questions in the chat, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And Alex has already answered some of those questions in the chat, and I can get us started as well. We do. So are there any, I think all of you have mentioned this a little bit, but are you currently involved, or do you have goals to be more involved in public service through your academics, through your personal side, through your career going forward? Do you want to expand on that a little bit? Kayla, do you want to go first since you were last?
Yeah,
you kind of started to mention it too.
Yeah, sure. So like I mentioned, I did, several internships kind of after my CLF one with PKG, and then, I've been thinking about grad school and kind of those opportunities. A master's of public health was actually something that my mentor and boss at CLF had. She went to the Harvard Chan School of Public Health. And so I was, kind of introduced to that as like a way for me to continue my path in kind of like anthropology and public service studies. I think right now I'm taking a little bit of a break, but in my free time, I do a lot of like community service on my own. I tutor for free and have volunteered a lot, like through my sorority. And I was actually introduced to the PKG during my freshman year through the pre-orientation program. And so they were actually really great, a really great resource when I was VP of philanthropy and programming for my sorority to figure out like what kind of community service we wanted to do in the Boston area. Yeah, I think those are ways that I was kind of involved with public service after CLF.
Awesome. Ben or Emily, do you have anything you'd like to add as well?
Yeah, sorry, Ben. I can go ahead. So right after I worked for CLF, I had the opportunity to be a part of the MIT Washington program, which is another public service or policymaking oriented internship program at MIT. So through that, I had the opportunity to work at the World Bank on disaster risk management and road flooding. So that was also a neat application of like urban planning and civil engineering to a public service space. Outside of that, I'm still really involved with the education space here at MIT, as I've mentioned earlier. I'm currently directing Dynamite, which is a STEM outreach summer program for underserved middle schoolers in the Boston area. So we're currently working on recruiting MIT mentors and students for the 2022 program, which hopefully could be in person, but we're we're still waiting for the decision on that one. But yeah, not sure what I will be doing post-grad or in the future, but am interested in like exploring more opportunities in environmental planning and maybe thinking about like working at a nonprofit or in city government or something like that.
Yeah, as far as professionally, I'm currently pursuing a career in animation and computer graphics in that area. And it's not directly related to public service, but I have really loved how a lot of studios in the past years have been focusing on, more inclusive film and more kind of diverse and interesting storytelling of all different types of people from all different places. And I think that's really cool. And I would love to be able to participate in work like that, just because I love the way that film, both in animation and live action, can reach emotionally to so many people and such broad audiences. I think that's really cool. Apart from that, I continue to be involved in my local religious community, and I hope to always be able to do that. And whether that's just doing like food drives or other local park service projects or just more like neighborly activities, I think it's just a really important part of life, and it just really helps to create great relationships and just healthy neighborhoods in general.
Awesome. Thank you. And a question for everyone, what would you kind of identify as your favorite part or most impactful part of this experience? And if Kayla, if you had other experiences too, you can bring those up, but working with the CLF and working with the PKG Center. Alex, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, thanks, Savannah. I mean, the whole process, frankly, was fantastic. I worked with Julie Uva at the PKG Center to help get the internship description set up, and she was really fantastic in coaching me about how to frame the internship and working with me to do some outreach to various groups within the MIT community. So that was a fantastic start. And then the whole experience of working with Emily was really fabulous. It was a really iterative process. So, you know, this health score impact scorecard that we use, it looks at over 100 indicators of health, economic, and environmental, as well as community impact across the developments that we assess. And to try to do every assessment manually would have been very onerous, really infeasible. And so, I mean, I can't tell you how important it was for us to be able to automate a big chunk of this process. It's made our lives at CLF on the ventures team so much easier. And it's allowed us to actually take what would be an hours-long process of data gathering and assessment and be able to accomplish that task in about 5 minutes. And we couldn't have done that without Emily. So as I mentioned in the chat, I learned a lot working with her, and we walked away from the experience with a tool that we use continuously and regularly at CLF, as well as some really robust written documentation so that you know, others can learn how to use the tool effectively. So it's really been a great help and a great experience. So thank you, Emily, and thank you, PKG.
We'll go backwards. And Ben, do you want to share what you thought was kind of most impactful or your favorite part?
I did really love the structure and the organization of it because it was collaborative between the PKG and CLF. Not only was it, like, in a sense, doubly accountable, but also there was kind of like milestones to meet. And I remember at the end of the summer, there was this opportunity to, you know, write a blog post kind of detailing my experience as working. And that was kind of a cool milestone to look towards. I'm really into photography. So along the way, I took, you know, a few photos of different events and things, and being able to compile that with all my thoughts, and then present that to kind of the PKG community and the MIT community. I think that was a really cool opportunity that spawned because of this collaboration. Other than that, like I mentioned earlier, the specifically on the CLF environment, I just really loved that there was generally an internship cohort to go with. And because, like, I worked with Rianne at CLF, who's kind of like my mentor there, and I looked to when I needed new things to do or when we were going out and doing field work. But other than that, like, a lot of time was spent, you know, at a desk parsing through data, going through different training materials, and being able to be with other interns at the same time who were all, you know, working on public service projects, not necessarily the same as what I was doing, was really cool to me and really impactful.
Awesome. How about you, Emily?
Yeah, so I guess I would say the most impactful part of working at CLF is definitely like the opportunity to just like reflect on my career. I feel like being at CLF made me realize there was like this whole branch of like public service and like community organizing opportunities as a career path that I just like wasn't thinking about. And I think that was something that I really felt was missing during my time before that at MIT, just because it's like such a technical and like academically focused institution. I would say my favorite part of working at CLF was definitely the workplace environment. I was remote the entire time. I had been remote for many months because of the pandemic, but it was really cool to see how everyone made such an effort to make me a part of the CLF community. It was like, I really appreciated that Alex checked in on me so much, and I really appreciated like during the team meetings, like our boss Maggie like made it a point to check in on everyone and ask how they were doing and like make us give our life updates and like show our pets and cute things like that. I enjoyed that a lot. And it was especially cool to see how everyone supported each other during the pandemic, which affected everyone differently, and also supported each other during what was going on last January politically. It was just really cool to see an organization prioritize everyone's well-being during that time. So yeah.
Awesome. And how about you, Kayla?
I'd say that my favorite part was probably just like the structure of the research study and the collaborative data analysis session that we hosted. So the study was participatory action research, which meant that the people that we were actually surveying in the various communities in Boston were also kind of research partners on the search or on the project rather. And I really appreciate like research studies that are set up that way. Like as I've continued to have like internships and other positions doing research in other places, I've realized how important it is for community members to make sure that like we as researchers and outsiders are asking the right questions, that we're making sure to address our biases about the community before we come into it. I think anthropological research in particular can be kind of exploitative. You're often like going into a community that you have like no ties to and you don't know anyone there. And you're just like, I'm going to collect data from you and then leave. And then like, what is that? How does that leave the community? And what kind of impact are they going to see from the data and information that you've just taken from them? And so I think that, the collaborative data analysis session was really great. We got to have all of our community partners come in and look at our preliminary findings and general trends that we had noticed. And then they were like, this doesn't make sense, or this isn't exactly getting at the nuance that we're experiencing like in our day-to-day lives. And so it makes sure that we were kind of very tuned in to like what the importance of the search was, or of the research study was, and making sure that we were actually doing work like for the community. It was really impactful to see how the different community partners wanted to kind of take the data that we had collected and our findings and actually use that to institute kind of community events or changes. They used it for their advocacy around different developments that were happening. I remember the Everett community used some of our data when they were advocating for like more housing as the casino opened. And so it's really great to kind of see those things, because like the point of this research is that, this is something that's happening to real life people and is impacting their day-to-day lives. And so what's impactful for me is making sure that our research is actually helping them in some way. So I think that was always my favorite part.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. And Jill, we've got one question in the chat.
Yeah, we have a question from the chat. Is PKG working with any equity funds involved in human development, and then in parentheses, training individuals for employment? Not that I can think of offhand. And I would welcome any leads that you may have for organizations that are managing such funds or that are doing the workplace training, the workforce training. I do believe that our students would be particularly interested in venture capital that's going for impact investing. We haven't made great inroads with that yet. And I think it's an area that's ripe for exploring in both directions. So we welcome any leads that you have. And if I've misunderstood your question or you have another point, please clarify.
Great.
And Jill, Oh,
Sorry.
I would just add, Jill, that while CLF isn't currently engaged in venture capital investing, our Healthy Neighborhoods Equity Fund, which Emily contributed to through her work on Health Score, is actually a private equity fund. It's an impact investment fund. Yeah, and that invests in workforce housing and mixed use developments, predominantly in historically disinvested communities in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. And so the PKG Center is actually working with at least one equity investment fund in that context.
That is wonderful. And Alex, that's a great point too, is that many of the community partners we're working with have different slices and parts of what they're doing. And so I may not be as steeped in all of those. And it's wonderful to hear of this real live example right now. And it's an area where I absolutely think we can be doing more.
Excellent. Thank you again for that question in the chat. Please feel free to continue sending us more questions or raising your hand and asking your question live. But I'll ask another if we don't have any coming in. What advice would you all give? So each of you, so Alex coming from the community partner side, and then you students and alumni coming from the student side, give to folks who think they might not have the time. Like MIT, it's the fire hose. We all know it's very intense. Students might not feel like they have the bandwidth to participate in these opportunities in public service, or community partners might not think that they have the right project for a student to work on, or they don't have the right opportunity to help train the students. So kind of what advice would you give to others who are considering this or who want to participate and aren't sure where to start? And I'll start with Alex.
Thanks, Savannah. That's such a great question. I would just say that whenever I speak with students who are interested in getting involved in social enterprise or sustainability or community service, I really encourage people to kind of take a step back and think about opportunities where they can work at the confluence of their passion, their skills, the skills that they've been developing in this case at MIT, and the communities, or for that matter, the world's needs. And I think if you can find opportunities to work within that context, at the confluence of your passion, your skills, and the community's needs, you're going to end up in the right place. And then finding that place, I think, is oftentimes just a matter of using the networks that you have at a place like MIT and reaching out to anyone and everyone that can connect you with the right opportunities to get yourself into a situation where you can put your skills and experiences to good use.
Absolutely. Ben, what advice would you give to other students?
I would definitely add that, MIT has definitely made a lot of effort through both the PKG Center and other opportunities into making public service a kind of a first class opportunity, in that, if you're looking for a summer internship and you've got a lot of, whether it may be classic, large tech business internships or other things of that sort, you can find equal opportunities with groups that are working on public service. And maybe they don't look like that at first glance from the outside, but as you talk with them and you see the projects that they're working on, and you see the opportunity that you'll have to invest your time and effort into developing skills and helping them, at least I personally really think about that. Like when I look at my freshman summer and the internship that I did, I definitely rate it as just a great investment of my time as any other internship would have been at that point. And I think that's something that is easily looked over, because like you've got 4 summers, 4 IAPs, something like that, right, to get all your undergraduate experience and get ready to go to the workforce. But each of those those times have equally good public service things, also like the spring break opportunities and everything else that goes on. And then from the other side of things, I guess, if for like various employers looking to get in contact with MIT students, at the end of the day, especially at least in freshman year, we might not have like specific, very, very specific things that we know we can do and we know we want to do. But at the very least, in my experience, every single MIT student has a ton of drive that if you give them a task that's interesting and that they are somewhat passionate about, that they'll find out some way to accomplish that or some way to improve that. And so, like, yeah, as an employer, if you don't have a specific project that seems techie enough or seems oriented enough, if you explain the problems that you're facing, you'll probably be able to come to some conclusion.
Awesome. Thank you. Emily, how about you? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I guess what comes to mind is I think every public service issue or social justice issue has a lot of different ways that you can find to tackle it. Like whether it be like through public sector versus private sector, like investing versus like organizing versus advocacy. I think there's like a lot of different skill sets and a lot of different like you know, day-to-days or like action items that can be done for each one. So I think really taking some time to like evaluate what kind of work you're interested in and like what gets you going every day, and then finding some way to like apply that to whatever public service or social justice issue you're interested in is important. I guess something else I also did prior to working to CLF and at CLF was reaching out to a lot of people who studied my major before, and like kind of asking like where they were at and like how they were applying those skills to work on the problems that they were interested in. So I guess that's just like an easy way to think about like, okay, like these are the people who have developed the same skills that I have or will during my time at MIT and how they're applying them. And then at CLF, I was also lucky enough to be able to like have virtual coffees with a lot of people on my team and like learn about how they were applying like different skills that they developed in undergrad or jobs before CLF and how they were applying that to different parts of CLF. So just kind of like figuring out like how your skill sets can match an interest or an issue that you want to work on.
Thank you, Emily. And I know the Alumni Association has lots of opportunities like that for alums to connect with students. So consider signing up for that. And Kayla, what advice would you give to students or even recent alumni like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ben and Emily made really good points around like, you know, there are lots of different times during the year that you can find a way to get involved with kind of social impact work. Like there's the summer, you could do it during the school year, IEP, as well as during spring break. So there's lots of different times for you to do it over the course of your, you know, 4+ years. I also think that the PKG is like super approachable. Like I didn't necessarily know that there were global or like public health internships that I could do, but that was what I was studying. And I just finished my urbanism internship during IEP. And I said, okay, is there something like that's like urbanism and health? And then they found something for me and it was CLF. And so I think like, even if you're unsure about what it is that you're like, what it is, like what opportunities are out there, you can just ask and then somebody will point you in the right direction. I think that like social impact work experience is just as valuable as like academic, like research or industry experience. Like I had worked at prior to switching into anthropology, I was a biochemical engineering major and was doing cancer research at the Whitehead Institute. But I definitely felt like I learned a lot more and developed way more skills during my social impact internships as opposed to my like wet lab internship. I think sometimes like you can have a lot more space and like autonomy to really shape what your experience is going to be, as opposed to it being very like prescriptive, somebody telling you this is what you have to do day in and day out. So I really appreciated like the opportunity to have like a larger impact on those experiences for myself. And then, yeah, I think like, you know, after graduating, I reached out to the PKG like to help me find a job. Actually, I had connected with Sarah Bouchard, who ran the program on Navajo Nation with COPE. And I said, hey, Sarah, like, how can I find a job in global health? And so she helped me during my job hunting process in the beginning. And, you know, I could always go back to the PKG and say, hey, like, this is what I'm thinking about for grad school, or et cetera. And, you know, I haven't been out of school for too long, but even if it had been a while, those connections are always still there. So they're always a really great resource, I think, for alums to get connected to community service, like in the Boston area, but also just like across the US.
Awesome. That is fantastic. I love to hear that. Yes, we are always wanting to connect with students and alumni. So we'd be interested in connecting with you. I'm going to share my screen to have a couple of slides to close us out. But thank you again to all of our speakers today. It was so awesome to hear about your experience and how it has impacted you. Thinking about those experiences, there is a lot of demand for these opportunities. So we've recently only been able to fund only 1 in 5 applications for the social impact internship. So we know the demand is there for students, and our goal is to be able to increase the number of opportunities that we can offer by about 25%. So going from 100 to about 400 internships. So we know it's a lofty goal, but that's what we're working towards. And it is great to hear that it's a priority for the Institute. In the recently released Task Force for 21 and Beyond report, it was specifically referenced that this is a priority for the Institute to increase these opportunities for experiential learning for students. So we are very excited about that. And with that does come additional needs. We are responsible for raising about 50% of our currently almost $2 million annual budget. And as more opportunities come, we do need to raise even more. So we're so grateful to the alumni who have given. It's a lot of the money we raise from individuals comes from alumni. So we're so grateful, and gifts of any amount are welcome, from small amounts to larger. And I would love to connect with anyone who is interested, and we can speak about specific opportunities. And mark your calendar for March 10th, the MIT's 24-hour challenge. PKG Center will be participating as a micro challenge on that day. So consider supporting the PKG Center as part of MIT's larger goal on that day. And we'd also love to engage with you. As Jill mentioned, we're looking for additional partners. If you or anyone in your network is working in one of those 3 themes, health, tech for good, climate, we would absolutely be interested in speaking more with you. And Emily is going to put some links in the chat for more information about joining as a partner. We also have an alumni volunteer group, a few of whom are here today. I'm so glad to see you all. So if you're interested in becoming more involved, I would welcome the opportunity to chat with you about that. We also have an opportunity to review proposals for the IDEA Social Innovation Challenge. They are reviewing this week. So if you're interested, please fill out the form that Emily put in the chat. And if we also keep you in mind for future review sessions as well. Same with presenting at workshops or our academic classes. If you're interested, reach out and we would be happy to talk to you about those opportunities now in the future. And thank you so much for coming today. We're so grateful. Please keep in touch with us. Emily's going to put these links in the chat to review our blog, sign up for our newsletter where we share student stories, following us on social, or feel free to reach out and email Jill or myself directly. We would be happy to connect with you. And thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for joining us. And for more information on how to connect with the MIT Alumni Association, please visit our website.